Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, please welcome to the stage Constantine Sandis.
I think I just stepped on the trouser button. I don't know. Knock knock.
Who's there?
That's as far as I got with my set. I didn't think anyone would actually turn up. I mean, I invited Gary, but I'm sorry for that. I once went to a talk at a conference. It was the European Society for Analytic Philosophy in Lisbon, and one of these massive, 3,000 people in all these parallel sessions. And I go to this talk on free will, and the speaker was there, who I kind of knew, and nobody else was there. Even the chair hadn't turned up. So it was the speaker and me, and we waited for 5-10 minutes, and I kind of knew this guy, and I said, there's the cafeteria, we could go have a coffee, discuss your ideas, a little less formally, but in more depth. I thought this, was giving him a lifeline, might appeal to him. And he just said no. He'd made this PowerPoint and he wanted to go through the presentation. So he starts giving this really formal talk, and I'm sitting there going, shit, I've got to come up with a question, or 2 questions, or 3 questions. And then it turned out he'd memorized this to perfection. So he would say things like, maybe this is something we could take up in the Q&A session. Anyway, so I don't know why you're here. I don't know why I'm here. My head of department thought maybe, could count as impact. I don't know. But it's a little bit troubling for me that I don't know these things, because I mainly work on explanation of action. In fact, I wrote a book called The Things We Do and Why We Do Them, and I have no bloody idea why anyone does anything. And I am currently writing a book called Understanding Oneself and Others, but I'm trying to maybe convince my publisher, who's here, to call it Beyond Clueless. Remember, witnesses. We've got witnesses. Anyway, so you might think, this guy, he pretends to know stuff about action explanation, yet he claims to know nothing about it. How does he get away with it? But I don't think it's that weird. Certainly not in philosophy, but in academia in general. If you think about how do we start researching a topic, there's something we don't get, and so we want to read more about it. And something we're not quite sure what it is, so we start reading up on it. And the more curious we get, the more we read, and in the end we become, world authorities in the one tiny thing we know fuck all about. And so I don't think it's just me. Some of you may have heard of Colin McGinn, now more famous for requesting hand jobs. You may want to Google that. But once upon a time, well-respected philosopher of consciousness, and he became known for a view called New Mysterianism. And the view was basically, not only can we not explain consciousness, but the human race could never evolve to answer the question of why we're conscious. Okay, that's a kind of grand way of throwing the towel in. I couldn't do it, so no one will ever be able to do it. And also, I don't think it's people like me you should worry about. You should worry about people who do moral philosophy, right? These are the people who, they don't get ethics. And there's a subfield of moral philosophy called philosophy of torture. These are fully grown adults who spend their daily working life trying to decide whether it's sometimes okay to torture young children. But anyway, I'm digressing. I should go back to reasons for action. My view is basically that the reasons for which we act don't explain our actions. And this may sound a little bit paradoxical, so let me try and give you a few examples. I think reasons are a little like proverbs, and when you hear a proverb, you go, yeah, that's right. Until you realize there's always another fucking proverb that says exactly the opposite thing. So think about absence makes the heart grow fonder. Out of sight, out of mind. Like attracts like. Opposites attract. The early bird catches the worm. Haste makes waste. And, you know, if the sword is so much... If the pen is so much mightier than the sword, how come sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me? I just... Right, so you think you've got an explanation. Really, you've not explained anything. Now, you tell this to an academic and they start looking suspicious. They start saying, well, you've taken it out of context. You've got to look at it within the special context of the situation. And when an academic starts talking about context, it basically means I haven't got a clue. Academics are suspicious of proverbs because they think this is the sort of the wisdom of the vulgar. You know, we're above this kind of thing. And philosophers in particular have always had it in for the vulgar. If you look at all the great philosophers, Aristotle, Hume, Hegel, whenever there's a counterexample to their view, they say, yeah, but that only applies to idiots, children, and the vulgar. But I'm a friend of the proverb because it tells us that, it shows us that we know nothing, basically. And anyway, once upon a time, when I was a young graduate student, I was a little more optimistic about reasons for action. And I wrote this PhD on reasons for action. And one day before my viva, my internal examiner contacts me. This is like the witness for the prosecution emailing the defendant a day before the trial. And he contacts me. He sends me an email with one sentence. It didn't even have punctuation. And it just goes, I think all reasons are opaque. Scared the living shit out of me. What kind of viva am I going to have tomorrow? I know Dan isn't here. I hope your internal examiner doesn't contact you saying, I don't think concerts exist on Monday. Anyway, and I thought, why the hell would someone do something like this? And then I thought, that's his point. Who knows? All reasons are opaque, right? I was initially going to do a PowerPoint of my own to give you more detail about my research, because maybe it's sounding a little vague at this point. But the last time I tried to give a PowerPoint, it didn't go terribly well. I was on my way to the... it was 2 years to the day today, I realized when I was trying to think when it was yesterday. So it's a kind of traumaversary for me. I was on my way to the American Philosophical Association in San Francisco, and I'd filled in my application to Gary for Central Research Funds, and I'd got my funding, and I was on the plane, and I thought, Americans, I've got to do PowerPoint for them. They're not going to, go with the whole whiteboard thing. And I spent the whole 12-hour flight with a stopover in Boston, fueled by watery coffee and Bloody Marys, doing this. It was perfect. I did this PowerPoint to perfection, and I realized at some point I didn't have my adapter for the States, so I made sure I saved it on the stick. The computer died, but I had the PowerPoint. It was all set. I go into the room, unlike my colleague, the room was full, which at the time I thought was a good thing. All these people, no computer. So I've got no handout, I've got no notes, I couldn't remember, I thought it's all on the slides, you'll be fine, right? The slides can give the talk. I had about 10 minutes before my session started, and I thought, well, it's a big hotel, I can go down, they'll print off some copies, it will be fine. So I'm running down, kind of looking at my watch, and the concierge points me to there's this kind of printer in the corner, and it said $4 per copy, insert credit card. And at this stage, you think, oh, fuck it, I'll be $50 down, and I'll have, 10 handouts, and they can share, and I'll at least have one for myself. I stick my credit card in, start pressing the buttons. To be honest, I think I blanked this incident from my mind, so I'm not really sure what happened next, but handouts were not coming out. I was pressing the print button, and either nothing was happening, or blank pages were coming out, or it got jammed, and I was kind of, sweating, looking at my watch, print. Finally, this kind of half-skewed thing comes out. I got like 3-4 copies of this thing. I take out the thing, I pull out my credit card, the machine, like very polite, like everything. Thank you very much for using our service. Your total is $1,079.13. Please call again. I'm thinking, fuck me, I've just spent $1,000 on one handout, one skewed handout. So that's why I don't have a PowerPoint for you today. And I feel bad about this, and I know you're probably thinking, so what does this guy do all day then? Well, like most of you, I do emails all day. That's all, you know, we can all give our job descriptions. We basically just do emails all day. The plumber came 2 days ago to fix my sink. He had to send 6 emails from the kitchen before he was allowed to do any work in it. So, and philosophers, I think we are a bit like plumbers. We can tell you what the problem is. We don't know how to fix it. And which reminds me, I'd like to end with another proverb. The plumber's toilet always leaks. Thank you very much.